Okay, fair enough.
over here. It's the prime walking hour out there. So
Alrighty. Okay. And Kavante, you
Good
can,
evening.
good, okay, cool. All right, so,
Can you hear me?
yes, perfect.
Okay, good.
All right, and Dustin, whenever
Hi,
you're
Sonia.
ready.
Hi, Kevante and Sonia.
hey,
Nice to
Dustin.
meet you.
Yeah.
So we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first annual Blue Flamingo Literary Festival Poetry Contest. Try saying that 5 times fast. My name is Dr. Dustin Helberg, and I teach creative writing here at UB. I'm working with my colleagues to start a creative writing minor in the English department, an exciting project to help promote literary expression for our students and the broader Bahamian community. This contest is an extension of those efforts. We invited poetry submissions from high school students from around the Bahamas and from our own students at the university. We had over 130 entries from both categories, an excellent number of excellent poems. I'd like to thank all the contributors for sharing your work with us. It was a joy and honor to see so many of you send in your poems for us to read. Thanks are due to the intrepid judges of this contest, Shauna Morgan, Rosemary McTeal, Princess Adil, and Malin Seymour Major. I'd also like to thank some of the people and organizations that donated money to make this prize possible. Thanks go to Lucinda Clark and the Poetry Matters Foundation, to our own Dr. Marie Sarsing, and to the University of the Bahamas. Our thanks go out to you and any future benefactors, wink, wink. Also, thanks to my friends and colleagues on the BFLF team for putting this thing together. It has been a wild ride this past year. I'm lucky to be here with you. Our hosts for this event are Sonia Farmer and Kevante Cash, both well-regarded writers and artists from the Bahamas. Before I introduce our hosts, however, I wanted to speak directly to our young writers joining us tonight, to linger a little bit on the nature of submitting your work to contests like this one or for publication in the future. Please don't think that if you didn't win or weren't nominated, that it means your work isn't good or that you shouldn't continue writing. All writers and artists receive multitudes of rejections, no matter the stage of their careers. So to our young writers and artists out there, keep writing, keep reading, keep working. Believe in yourself enough that your vision becomes your motivation. Wear your rejections proudly. Not everyone has the courage to submit their art and writing for public display. You have my respect. Your voice is one that should be heard and will be if you persevere. Now to our hosts. Kevante Cash will lead the high school awards, while Sonia Farmer will lead the university selection. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Cash here first. Kevante Cash is a Bahamian writer, artist, and cultural worker currently in the MFA program in Manchester Metropolitan University. Her work has been published in a wide range of international journals, focusing on themes of Caribbean identity, queer identity, mental health, and pleasure. Her art has also been featured in various exhibitions, the most recent one held at the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas to understand and heal from the horrors of post-Dorian life through her art. Thank you for being here, Ms. Cash.
Thank you, Dustin, for the introduction, and thank you to the English department, Dr. Sarsing, and Dr. Smith for having me here. I'm so grateful to be here with Sonia, who is not only just a really, really good friend, but also my mentor. We are together, we work together with Malin and 3 other poets in our poetry group back home. So I was asked to read poetry, and I'm a reader, not a performer, so just wanted to get that out there. I was asked to read some of my work for about 10 minutes, but before I do, just to kind of like carry on and yeah, just the energy of Dustin encouraging young people to just keep writing. And um, at the end of the day, it's really about just putting yourself out there and letting the world see that you have a voice. And competitions and opportunities like this are so important because they give you the chance to connect with other writers who are emerging in careers or more established, like Sonia, um, to see like what can become of your writing if you just keep on doing it. So I have thankfully just completed my dissertation. So I'm gonna, my poetic dissertation. So I'm going to read some poems from my dissertation and the creative project. So the first is called I Feel the Spirit of You. I feel the spirit of you between the hours of wake and sleep. You creep in on me like gray and salmon skies creep in on the blue. Your voice is like a small black bird steadily swooping over buildings and trees and cranes and things we forgot were blocking our view of twilight before time slowed down. I miss you, grandmother, through the aches of my sleep, where silent thoughts of dwindling money and family business failing haunt me. I lie awake, wrestling with breath and these thin white walls, caving in on this Mancunian dwelling, thinking of your prayers that brought me here. But what good is the British dream without a grandmother to call back home and tell all about it? What good is moving miles and miles away as the first granddaughter to achieve the dreams you couldn't without you here to make proud? I carry your prayers in my spine, the place you held the most pain for years because your love for your husband, children and grandchildren burden your need to sit still. I think of you in every stretch, pull, and tug of this world and the wisdom you'd offer. Now, child, you mustn't hurt your head. You may not understand it now, but Jesus knows best. So that was the first poem. The second that I am going to read is called Neglected Garden. I wonder if my mother still cares for her garden the way she tends to mine. These days, she chokes the soil with too much water, chars the skin with too much sunlight in a room. She doesn't even notice her touch-me-nots have forgotten how to bloom, or that its leaves have dried out, or the grass is no longer green. She's probably never seen the inside of her daisies, the flecks of pink that sit on church white pews. She hasn't noticed her marigolds are not even blue, like the babe she makes of me. She doesn't take time to breathe or give all the love she extends back to herself. And this, the penultimate poem that I'm going to read, it will actually be featured in a journal based over here. So I'm based in Manchester, England right now. It'll be featured this spring, and it's called God Save Us. And it was inspired by, so I'll read it. On Monday, June 29th, 2020, the government of the Bahamas released official documents updating the Bahamian police public of the new state of emergency surrounding the COVID-19 global crisis. As of July 1st, 2020, the Bahamas will open its borders to all travelers, including visitors, commercial airlines, private aviation, and vessels. No quarantine is required of incoming passengers after entering the Bahamas. At the end of the document, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas signed off citing, "God save the Queen." God save us from the poison they bring and hefty laughs and uncovered faces while we are expected to mask our thirsty homes, wheezing bank accounts, hungry car tanks, scaly lips, runny noses, coughs, laughs, dialect behind clots of Androsian print. No fine tip could reverse the damage the monarchy has plagued us with. God, fuck the Queen, let the palace burn, and may the spirits of our ancestors lost at sea gather round in ring play, chanting hymns of olden days to go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that we murdered their white Jesus. I was supposed to put a content warning there. The curse words, I'm sorry, I haven't read this in a while. I just got done with this dissertation and handed it in. And the very last poem that I'm going to read is actually featured in a Caribbean journal that Sonia and Malin and Yasmin Glinton, some of the people in my poetry group, have been featured in. And this poem is called "The Makings of a Queen." From me come out the closet in her tall plum heels, wrist broken, hip sashaying, the tied up bed sheets dragging on the floor. I knew he was gonna have a hard life. He, at his freest, neck tossing and turning like candy wrapper when time to open, the comb his mic for practice, and his notes hit like high praise, the sweetest hallelujah. And he walked just like fair spurred, the strangest you ever did see, strutting them skinny legs and ashy knees, showing off them skittle fingernails and glossy lips. No piece of praying could have delivered a soul like his that was already too far gone. But that's too bad. Dance, black boy, dance. Sashay them hips, flick those wrists, put that head in a circle, show them what rainbow joy is made of. Black boy, black joy, thrive. Toss and turn that neck for freedom, feel the spirit release. Let the island heat trickle down your spine like jam and honey as you whine and catch a dip. You got about 5 more minutes left before they come and make a scene. So make yourself seen. You are magic epitomized. You are joy, thriving in heat. Black boy, black joy, thrive on every yes, girl, and work it, queen. And that is the conclusion of my poems. So now I have the honors of, announcing the finalists and winners of the competition. So before I go ahead and announce the winners, there were honorable mentions that the judges did want us to read off. So the honorable mentions are Leela Palmer for Pink Black Girls, Daly McCartney for The Art of Water, Alexis Cadet for Midnight. And so without further ado, the third place winner is Stephanie Santil for Black Girl Balladry. Is Stephanie here? Is the order that Stephanie reads and then I move on, or do I read every?
Correct. Yeah, Stephanie will read that. As you announce them, they will read their piece.
Okay.
She's unmuted right now. just unmuted a moment ago, Stephanie, and now it has returned to silence.
Can Stephanie unmute herself?
I saw someone
Sorry, I
named
was
Stephanie
having
just left.
internet issues.
That's it.
Black Girl Balladry. I'm a work of art. Like a siren song, I stop hearts. With every story I carve, invisible strings of symphony in my every syllable. My mind, a temple of many stories, forged from the mere strokes of a pen. Poetry, a tailored suit. These words, a silken thread. My skin, black as the ink flowing from my fountain pen, tells a story of revolution and evolution. Lyrics for people buried but not dead. Seeds, the blueprint of the universe.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing that. That was so lovely to hear and so encouraging too. And so the second place winner for this competition is Palasia Saltelli for Offline. Can Palasia come online to read?
Good evening.
Oh.
Good evening, everyone. So my poem is Offline. I depart from womb. It's bare. I'm unwelcomed. The mirror sighs, angry as I walk by. I greet today, again yesterday, next tomorrow. A noose of wires they sway, mimicking teeth and gum. A facade of blurs they replay, mocking sight and some. No, all of my days. Am I even here? Online. Classes attended. Assignments completed. A poem written for a competition entered. I return. It's done. I'm finished. The people knock, angry as I don't unlock. I forget today. Again yesterday, next tomorrow. A caress of warmth they embrace, mimicking sky and sun. A comfort of isolation they replace, mocking society and one. No, all of my memories. Am I still here? Thank you.
Thank you, Palasia, for sharing that and congratulations. It was refreshing to hear a rhyming poem. And yeah, I like how cheeky it was as well. And we've come down to the winner of the high school poetry competition for the first annual Blue Flamingo Lit Festival contest awards. And the winner is Meredith Forbes for Freedom.
Good afternoon. Freedom. We are free, but are we really? Our bodies stuck in an unremitting trance. The puppet master has let down and folded his hands, and yet we continue to participate in this unabating dance, acting for them and playing the fool, insecure to revert to our past selves for fear of ridicule, as they orchestrate this carefully controlled chaos, this fake and false freedom, minds, bodies, generations, trained to the system, bone deep tiredness from working for them, mistaking their facade of concern while their acceptance you intensely yearn. Our history they have defaced, and now your roots you find difficult to trace. Are you awake? But even in our dreams, the shadows are passing underneath the door of our conscience, entering and plaguing this peacefully still mind until you are constrained in the prison of nightmares and blocked by the bars of tribulation that you will remain behind. Their burdens, sorrows, and stress do I carry, but their aspirations, dreams, and wishes do I hold close. Mixed with everything, and yet sure am I that I will do more than just merely survive. The sun emits rays which hugs and sustains our beings, and like the sun, we will glow, despite the cold our coverings which try to overshadow. Their cries still echo in my ears, their scars still brand my body. Blood-red letters that decorated their bodies now mar my soul. Their pain still lingers, wounds healing ever so slowly. Asking me to forget is almost an insult. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith, and congratulations. It was such a lovely poem to listen to, and especially just like it feels very timely. Um, yeah, to all who have submitted works and have not been placed or mentioned, again, just kind of piggybacking on what Dustina said, like it's all about just continuing to write and getting your work out there, and people are reading it. Even if you think that people aren't reading it, people are reading it. So I will pass it on now to back to Dustin.
Okay, so thank you to the readers, and congratulations to first, second, and third place. Congratulations to the runners-up, and congratulations to anybody who submitted work. I think, like Yvonne said, you just have to press forward in your writing. And I actually worked with a few of these authors this morning in a writing workshop that we had. So it was very nice to kind of see you again and hear those poems again. So thank you. We'll now turn to the university contest, and I will introduce Sonia Farmer. Sonia Farmer is a Bahamian writer, book artist, publisher, and educator. She holds a BFA in writing from Pratt Institute and an MFA in book arts from my alma mater, the University of Iowa. Through her small press, Poinciana Paper Press, she works with writers and artists to advance cultural ownership and voice in Caribbean narratives. She's the author of several books, some of which have won or been nominated for prestigious international awards. I'd like to thank Sonia for being here too, and I will pass the floor to her.
Hi, thank you so much. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Sometimes this internet connection can be, special. Good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for that introduction, Professor Helberg. And thank you to the Blue Flamingo Literary Festival and the English Department and the University of the Bahamas for inviting me, and also to share my work and also to share in celebrating poetry tonight. I'm also really excited to be here with fellow big writer, Kevante. I'm so excited for her. Congratulations on completing your dissertation. That's really amazing. Yeah, no big feat, no small feat, sorry. I get so nervous with these online readings. In person, I have no problem. And online, I am just like, the internet can cut out at any moment. There's so much that's not under my control. Anyway, I'm also being like the most Luddite, and I like read off of paper as if I were at like a real in-person reading. So, please pardon me for looking down, but yeah, I basically have an MFA in Luddite if you didn't hear. So, all right, well, before I announce the winners for the University of the Bahamas for the poetry competition, I've been invited to share some of my own work. And I've chosen to share some poems that I crafted during the lockdowns of last year, where I began some work on confronting the kind of past and future in my present relationship and living space. So I'll read a few poems from that, and then I'll read a poem from one of my chapbooks. So this first poem is called Don't Look, and it was shortlisted for the Montreal International Poetry Prize last year, since we're celebrating awards. So, don't look. We suspected the tomato thief was a rat, but not a mother of 5 newborns, now 4, fetal and blind to their crushed sibling, inches away on the pavement, where an evening jogger, thinking they were aborted puppies, picked each one up and arranged them in the gentle hammock of her shirt before asking us, "Is this your house?" Its tenor ringing with accusation, as if aware that I had indeed considered, if only briefly, somehow ridding my young dog of her litter halfway into her unintended pregnancy, or of the rat poison tucked into our kitchen cupboard. And even though I could see those long, limp tails for what they were, we took the helpless, wrinkled and gray things helplessly from her soft belly into a hard plastic box, and then into our house, and placed them on top of the same kitchen cupboard, holding that poison, while we decided what to do, out of sight from their disarming squirms and yawns, reminding me why, for years, I had a plan in place, like many women do here, in case of emergency, to head to New York City. Not because I can't, with enough money, find a doctor here to overlook, but because I can't live with my own cruelty in my field of vision. Your ex-wife knew that too, when she took her unwanted pets to the other side of the island to abandon them, ensuring they would not find their way back, of course, but also so that these ambiguous acts of murder or mercy could remain within the hard boundary of a carefully guarded blind spot, a yawning black mouth of shame and horror up close, from which your life forever moves on a deliberate trajectory away, glancing back in the rearview mirror, only to confirm that it grows smaller and smaller until it's reduced to simply a full stop, a pebble in the road, or maybe something else that your tire silences without ceremony. And you take in the kind of breath that you know you will hold, as if your next could either expose or exonerate you, gulping down the air, and with it, the toothless thing that once threatened to swallow you whole. Yes, it is always preferable to be in the seat of a car or a plane, severing yourself from the unspeakable act, instead of here, in bed, trying to sleep, while just outside of the gate, where we later returned the newborns back to their suspected burrow, 4 heartbeats grow more and more faint, like war drums retreating and making their promise to return. Thank you. Technical difficulties with the makeup that I haven't worn in like 3 months. Okay. It's not the poem, it's not that serious. Okay, so the next poem is called The First Cut, and it's also from this series. And I haven't shared it publicly on like this kind of platform before. Kevante knows this poem, she helped me to edit it. But this is new, so hope you enjoy. The First Cut. Maybe because we didn't name the house in which I spent my childhood, or maybe because in a place without zip codes and with missing street signs, this is how we negotiate visibility in a palimpsest of plantations. I am quietly obsessed with the names that we give our patches of paradise, announced in clean tiled rows or restless mosaics, florid scripts or fat blocks carved boldly into a cement wall that itself carves into the landscape like a prehistoric fossilized serpent, making small Edens everywhere, everywhere promising a fall. That is to say, promising love stories, which begin not between a devil and a god or between two earthly beings, but between two hands that cup soil carefully over the smallest promise, waiting for the earth to perform its alchemy on a dormant heartbeat. For example, you bought with your house the good bones of this, you bought with your wife the good bones of this house with its modest collection of palm trees and named it Falling Coconuts with an exclamation point announced in colorful letters splashed across a makeshift driftwood plaque, a playful spin on the serious warning that Caribbean parents instill in their children, lingering in the shade of the fronds, bombs clustered overhead. Those ubiquitous fixtures of paradise are also its hardiest survivors, bending their crowns to the ground in the screaming mouths of storms, or on calmer days, patiently collecting the scars of woodpeckers and knives thrown by your unruly young boys at their trunks in playful competition. Which is why I suppose one day when a Joneser came into your place of work, trying to sell you another seed made from water squeezed out of unforgiving sand and tossed into an ocean as blindly as a message in a bottle, you saw the wound split by a sturdy shoot of green and started building a grove in your namesake yard, not knowing that in 20 years after the fall, when the children grew up and she walked out of the gates of your Eden and never came back, you would need something that would survive on its own without your care for a while, something to help you think back to the moment you chose to start over, when all of those trees, except for one, after years of posturing themselves before catastrophes, fell one by one in the span of a single quiet season, racked by a lethal yellowing spread through routine pruning, and how then the name of your house became two kinds of premonition, though the promise of an end lies always on the other side of a beginning, separated only by the hair-thin, ragged terrain of a machete's blade, tipped with imperceptible poison. And so, while the land went on living, you put your hurricane shutters up one season, and they stayed there, while you placed forehead to earth inside, dormant under the skin of this map, excavating the dark split you've come to call love. Thank you. And then the last poem that I'll read is not a new poem, but it's from one of my chapbooks, and I always read something from one of the books that I've made. So this is called This Is Not a Fairy Tale, and it's a couple of years old now, but it is reimagining one of our folkloric myths. This is not a fairy tale. On a morning like every other, the island stirs awake, habitually masked to the violence of the everyday, light ripping open the bellies of clouds, stain of red spreading across the sky. Women on the island boil grits and stain them with corned beef. Men kiss their women goodbye as automatically as they will clean their fish later on the dock, tossing guts from bellies to sea, red meeting red, spreading out to the horizon. But this is no morning like any other, and no evening will be. This is the day that I arrive, as light, foreign woman with a beauty that stirs the island awake. Where I've come from, who I am, none of this matters now. though men and women murmur around my head like seagulls and give me a name, Gollin. What they will say later, when I've vanished, is that I came for the man whose hands cleaned fish as thoroughly as women's hearts. Yes, the story of the woman exists always as a footnote to the story of the man. Her life as uneventful as a boat tied to Potter's Key dock for weeks on end. No one asks, what is this boat doing here, day after day, getting bleached by the sun? Instead, they marvel at the way it fits into the scene there, perfectly sized for that one man inside, his shirt wrapped around his head to catch the sweat collecting on his brow. He pauses for a moment after he ties the boat to the dock, glancing at the sun, almost finished setting behind him, scattering red across the surface of the water there. Why I came is not important. How I left you, that is important. How you look at your lovers now, that is important. My dear, all women are Gollins. The question you must ask is, when does a woman become a Gollin? The answer is in the story, by taking a lover. The difference between a woman and a Gollin is the woman loves once and cannot go on. Her despair is like the boat waiting at the dock for the fisherman to come back. It supposes he will come back. Set adrift long ago, the Gollin has learned through many lovers how to tell her own story. She's memorized the methods of those men, tether and abandon hope in a pool of illusion, and improved upon them. If my leaving has taught you anything, let us hope that it is this, that the shape of your love and the shape of your lover mean nothing to the woman who has been disfigured by the cruel returns of devotion. When you tell your story, you will be telling my story. This is what it means to be a shapeshifter. Like light, nothing holds me, everything releases me. Beware the scattered fire. Beware the sun that makes men pause on their little boats and wipe their brows and stare so long at its center, they go blind with desire. Thank you. All right. So thank you so very much for allowing me to share some of my work today. It's now total honor to announce the winners of the Blue Flamingo Literary Festival Poetry Competition selections from the University of the Bahamas. And like before, each of the winners placing first, second, and third will be invited to share their poems with us, and I am so excited to hear them. I really applaud the Blue Flamingo Literary Festival and indeed the University of the Bahamas for challenging emerging poets to bring their best work forward in order to nurture a vital craft for nation building. And I say that not from the perspective of like blind nationalism, but from the perspective that poetry can allow us as Bahamians to build, hear, and consider self-actualized narratives that stake a claim to Bahamian identity, space, and future that is more complex than the oppressive histories, systems, and current models that we currently navigate today that I don't think serve us. I like that poetry disrupts those, and I really look forward to hearing more poetry today, because that has already happened with the first 3 readings. They were just like brilliant, and of course Kevante's work. But I look forward to hearing this work, and also I encourage everyone who has submitted to the competition to keep disrupting. Okay, so before we get to first, second, and third place, I would like to mention the 3 honorable mentions here, and they are Beaumont Todd for Joneser's Lament. Congratulations, Beaumont. Jalicia Strawn for FAQ, and Sanika Richards for The Lady Josephine. Congratulations. That's really exciting. Okay, so now
I can
Um,
interrupt real quick,
yes.
Sonia, sorry. Can we have the readers or the winners here maybe read more than one of their poems that they submitted if they want?
That would be exciting.
Yeah, just to kind of hear, because I know some of them, and there's quite a range of voice in their work. Not to say that there's not in the high school contestants, but I thought that might be a kind of nice thing so we can hear more of the poems and voice and the range.
Yeah, great. All right, well, that sounds exciting. So
Wonderful.
winners, as you get ready to read your winning poems, and you are set to read more, please do. We would love to hear it. Okay, so in third place, the winner is Summer Aubrey for Ohala. I hope I'm pronouncing the title right, Ohala. Congratulations.
Hello, thank you. Yes, it's Ohala.
Cool, cool. Yes.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. Ohala, you'll kill yourself one day. He hums a word. The air around him stings. Poison. Sweat slipped, he slides into bed, heavy and warm-blooded. January. Dancing curtains. A religious shooing of blackbirds, poking their pointed heads between overgrown white pampas. Stolen pennies in their beaks that she'd used to wish away her incorrigible weakness. The days sputter and wheeze, cough up a phlegmy meanness. Vacant, roomy eyes glaze over. February. Stray puppies mewling in the crawl space. Threadbare clouds. He cuts the grass. She picks the burrs off his blue jeans, and they're free of blackbirds for a while. Free of other things, too. Life exhales a bated breath, sags in all the right places. It is good. The first day of spring. A twittering outside her window. You think it'll live? He asks. A blackbird's fallen nestling flitters in the grass. Thank you.
That was lovely. Would you like to read more of your work, or are you prepared to? You're welcome to if you would like.
Okay, I can read another one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Summer.
This one is called Tiny Suns. Never-ending days marked by magenta evenings and blackened souls. Melted sunlight, furrowed clouds, and liquid dreams. Good things, too many of them, spoiled me. A wistful glance at markings on the bathroom doorpost. A well-wish, soggy goodbye kisses. Complacently, I beckon the new world, and I think, Buzz has gotten the planets all wrong as I plant my feet on such magnificent desolation. Time passes, unformed days, his word yet spoken, my faith clinks about. I prostrate myself on blackened knees, lift my head to a blackened sky, and plead to the last remaining stars to remember me.
Cool. Powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and for sharing more of your work. That's exciting. Congratulations again. All right. So I think we will announce now the second place winner for the competition. And that is Ide Thompson for Yellow Yellow. Congrats, Ide. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'll start with Yellow Yellow. So it's titled Yellow Yellow Kiss the Fellow. Yellow Yellow Kiss the Fellow. You was young and wanted to tell hell. You wanted to spill night secrets and dreams all over your bodies. Yellow Yellow. You know this is what you wanted. A kissing on that supple skin. Brown and mango make black turn ready. Yellow, yellow, you still remember those childhood rhymes, the times you played with boys. Yellow, yellow, love the boy that spins in light round the ball. Yellow, yellow, court him secretly, smile when you see him. Yellow, yellow, let your heart sink, open quiet. Yellow, yellow, it's the first light of your love. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's great. Very Ide. Do you have more work to share? Also, just like congratulations for your MFA acceptances, by the way. I am so excited for you. So excited. That is a really, really awesome. So I know you have more to read because you had to make a bunch of portfolio submissions for your MFA application.
Yeah, I
So
did.
please share.
Okay, I read one more. It's called Limestone Isolandia. Limestone Isolandia. You hear rumors of a city rising up out of the water and darkness, breaking through like the aftermath of mosquitoes' kiss, an intrusion for tropical disease, dengue. And in your fever, dreamed, engulfed body, you vision a story of your people. You catch the voice of a Negus Bahari, an ancestor that could swim strong, and they tell you what Massa used to say. Now we're at a nigga out of place. These salt niggas must be think they special. That's why we cut them from the water, make sure they can't swim, make sure the water thick and heavy like pepper sack, cut them just like so. And in your daydream, like an undercurrent through the sea, you hear your ancestors and your rebellion. This is why even now, I ain't get why I use work Atlantis. Because you know, children can't learn to swim there. We used to run cross water like it's dirt. You're not gonna catch it again though. It's true what I say. One day soon, you can need it to survive, but time ain't come yet. You surface from the Sankofa, soaked in sweat, joined with the submarine. There is no distance from you to the sea. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. That's great. Are we ready to move on to first place, or Ide, do you have more? How you doing?
I can read my last one if you want. Yeah,
I knew you had a last one. How did I know? Do it.
Okay, this one is a bit older. It's called Creole Circle. May the ancestors be among us as we cross the great divide, as we pray and keep the gates, blasting entries standing wide. Let our hands come together as we marry earth and sky, entering the in-between crossways of divine. Third eyes like oculi, blazing tropic sun. May the circle be unbroken, Legba be our guide. We roke, we ready, Creole and unashamed, discarnate as we step across the lintel and our frame into the sacred circle where only light can reach. We reconnect dualities, we shape a hollowed piece. With splendor solace and cosmic matter, we see the seen unseen, Iliasta being formed again in our Chrysopian sea. In this holy grove, we'll speak the names of liminal deities, Eshu, Hecate, Baron, Samdi, all keepers of the roads. We'll wait a year and a day, then intone the hallowed names of every spirit in the earth, each blazing like a star. We cycle pumps of culture dawn, gazing beyond the mountain top. We'll work the seven splendid wonders, form flesh with spoken word. When all is healed, it will be glorious. Mandalas fixed in hollowed stones, each ash resplendent binding mark, yantras of the promised land. Until we too join our precursors in the great beyond between, not above, not below, but everlasting, balanced in polarity. Thank you.
That was epic. So you just wanted to save the epic one for last. I see how you roll. Congratulations again, Ide, and thank you for sharing your work with us. So hearing the second and third place placing poems, I can see that the judges had a tough time. because everything sounds amazing. So now we will announce first place winner. And the first place winner is Saria Cash for Independence. Congratulations, Saria.
Thank you. I was actually really scared to even say this poem, but I will. Independence for sale. I didn't know that my kind were cannibals. They'll peel the skin off each other with their teeth, rip limbs apart with their hands, eat them, then serve it to their children. I didn't know that women were flowers and men gardeners. My father told me, honey, that's the way it's supposed to be. But all I ever see is men taking their sons into gardens to plow the ground and destroy them. I didn't know that my eyes were broken. My kind don't look like me no more. And I feel like I'm the only one who sees the color black. Am I? A lot of my sisters and brothers prefer to see the color white. I didn't know criminals dressed up as policemen. I saw one rob a man who looked like him, but spoke a different language. We're afraid, so tell me, who are we supposed to go to for help? I didn't know polygamy was my country's sweetheart. I don't want God to punish me for not having a sweet heart. I didn't know that this rock is still a slave to the hands who throw money at it. Thank you, sir. Are you enjoying your stay, ma'am? Will that be all? I didn't know that a leader became a mother during election. Now he has to take care of his home and his children, who will put him to death without trial when water begins to drip from rooftops. I didn't know my island was a prostitute. While her voyeur children watch, moguls spread her legs open and plant seeds of capitalism inside of her. I didn't know what it meant to be Bahamian. The colors gold, black, and aquamarine have been washed dry into red, white, and blue. I didn't know my society was segregated. Why does the West bleed money and power when the East bleeds blood and poverty? I rarely see a white man or woman, but when I do, I always wonder if they breathe the same air that I do. I didn't know that pulling, pushing, and poverty was the holy trinity of my country. Sometimes God don't exist here. I didn't know the older generation depended so much on the younger generation. I'm sorry. There hasn't been any sign of a Black Moses who will lead us to freedom again. I didn't know that you would be interested. See, the government said people 17 and under have no sense, no voice, but at 16 are able to give consent when that makes no sense. I didn't know I lived in a jungle. I thought my home was supposed to be paradise. I thought I was supposed to have a better life. I thought I was free. At least now, I know how much my independence is worth. Thank you.
Wow. I think we all just need to take like a breath after being slapped around by that poem. It was, and I understand when you said I was a little bit afraid to read it. I understand that. And I think that when we're a little bit afraid to read our work, it's telling us something. I feel like if you feel like a little too excited and confident about your work, it's just like a red flag. Like just always be a little afraid of what you're doing, and always just questioning like just a little bit like, why you know, why am I afraid? But that's a good sign. So keep saying the things you're afraid to say, and don't write for anyone. Have zero expectation. That was great. Do you have other poems to share?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Awesome. Take it away.
This one is called Lay Me Naked. This is actually an old one I wrote in SAI program. And actually one of the persons inside here, Miss Maylene Seymour, she actually helped me with it, if I could remember correctly. Okay. Lay me naked. Nail my hands and feet down like Christ on the cross. Stretch my broken, bruised body out and crucify me. Tightly grip my head back with your hands and crack into my skull. You'll find repressed memories of childhood times, ruptured thoughts, dreams, hopes, and painful secrets that burgeon from hell to heaven into poison trees of guilt and crimes. Split my sternum. You'll pair through a forlorn heart. On one side, you'll meet the woman that tore it down, my mother. And on the other, the only men that rebuilt it, as if it were their own hearts being ambushed by their wives, my brother and father. Lying shallowly in my lungs, you'll feel vacant voids of air that once dropped and rose like the bounce of freshly pressed hair. Inside my liver, you'll find swarms of toxins and tears at war, itching red and smoldering blue. In my stomach, an empty and lonely house that's still pending to become a home for my unborn children. Because when you grip my 16-year-old waist, beneath my bladder, you'll see the unplucked flower of my virginity. Thank you.
Boom. Great. Your work really takes no prisoners. That's my favorite kind of genre. Would you share a third one? Are you ready to, like, are you prepared to share it? Not to put you on the spot, but I mean, if you had a third one, we would be thrilled to hear it.
I actually do have a third
Yes.
one.
All right. Do it.
Okay, so this one is called Dark Shades of Blue. I waltz with fair on pianos of black and white keys, where truth comes from the staccato of our hearts and feet. In this place, tears are their own masters, and my black face their canvas. In this place, joy seldomly visits. Upon each return, it becomes a foreigner in its own home. In this place, faith is like the wavering flame on a candlestick. In this place, war becomes raw, and time from its past still moves. In this blue house, stars burn forever. In this blue house, the sky never existed. Up above were only men and women molding me from dark shades of blue. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, and congratulations again. Your work is very powerful and it's a well-deserved first place. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I think we are now going to have a little bit of a discussion, like a question answer, open discussion with the winners. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. I'm happy to kick it off, unless Kavante, you would like to do the honor, because that would also be okay with me since I've been talking for the last half hour.
Yeah, I prepared some questions.
Do it.
Yeah, I guess. So my questions, I think because I'm handling the high school winners, my questions are directed towards Stephanie, Palasia, and Meredith. So the first question that I would have for you all is, when did you first start writing?
So I've been writing for as long as I can remember, but I've only began to take it serious once I entered grade 12 and started understanding all of the aspects that I enjoy and love about literature and poetry. Yes.
Okay, I can probably do it in an orderly fashion so that everyone can know who could speak next. So I'll call on Stephanie, and then I'll call on Meredith.
I actually started writing about 2 years ago when I really started to get into poetry and actually started to enjoy it.
Thank you, Stephanie and Meredith.
Well, I wasn't really much of a poetry type of person, but I loved writing narratives. And like around grade 11 is when I really started to share it. So I just stuck to it and decided to continue sharing.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you would say that, especially, yeah, all of your answers are very interesting. I'm very, yeah, fascinated with Stephanie's response that she just started writing about 2 years ago, and to hear the poem that she came up with and to place in the competition is just outstanding. So my follow-up question would be, what or whom encourages or inspires you to write? Or in other words, like, why do you write? What is your purpose of writing? And I'll start with Stephanie, and then we could go to Felicia and then Meredith.
For me, poetry is a mixture of my personal beliefs and everything that I see around me. So anything that I see, I'll ask myself, how can I relate to it? How does this relate to my personal life? And I'll just write about it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Like when I think about poetry, I just think about life, like life is poetry, poetry is life in a sense. Um, yeah, your response is really interesting. And I'll move on to Felicia.
As an individual, I find it quite difficult to get my thoughts across, and through poetry and literature, it makes it easier to help people understand what I'm thinking and what I want them to understand. Yeah. So
And you chose such a many would say like a very difficult um like form of writing to express your thoughts. So it's just kind of like cool to see like how you perceive poetry and how you like execute your emotions through it, because a lot of people would say that, yeah, they would rather just kind of go for short story writing or novel writing because it's just kind of like you write in what it is and not having to mask it through metaphors and similes and other like literary devices. So yeah, it's really cool, and it shows like, yeah, just your capabilities and brilliance. Meredith, why do you write? What is your purpose of writing?
Whenever I write, it's usually after I get a burst of inspiration. I just have to get an idea on the paper before I forget it. But if I feel like a certain idea really just, it just really has like a deep meaning or something that means a lot to me, I really just have to add to it and possibly share it.
Yeah, interesting that you would also mention about having that inspiration recently, since I've completed my master's dissertation, I've only been writing, not necessarily for the purpose of like allowing other people to see my work, but just for myself. And I writing for me just kind of is like prolific in a sense. So I think like that, right, and it doesn't really matter how it sounds, it's just about putting it on the page. And I saw that in the chat. Malin said it's important to write what you know. Yes, and honoring your experiences that you have in that moment. Like if you are experiencing grief, or if you're experiencing like romance, or like a friendship breakup, or anything along those lines, it's important to just write on those things and not necessarily consider like who is going to see this work, but like, is this my truth? And if it's my truth, then I need to put it on the page, and I can always come back to editing it. So in that thought process, I wanted to ask each of you, starting with Stephanie, what does your writing process look like? Is it like whenever you're inspired, you write, or is it kind of like, is it strategic? Like at the end of every day, I have to sit down and write something because I want to ensure that like my writing improves. Like, how do you go about writing?
I don't really plan for anything. It just naturally happens. And I think that's really important to me as a writer. When I'm inspired, I open up space for imagination and creativity instead of just having that strategic plan.
Yeah, I think it's important to really honor the imagination. I think poetry is interesting because you can write prose poetry where it can use literary devices, or you can just write plainly a story in this poetic way. But I think, yeah, the imagination in poetry just opens up worlds. Like I've read poetry by people in my poetry group that I'm in with Sonia, who, like Sonia, just read about like reimagining Bahamian folklore, and other people who write about like Bahamian mythology. And it's just so interesting to see like where it can take you. So it's really, really important to honor the imagination. Palasia, how does your writing process look? What does your writing process look like?
My writing process is quite erratic and it lacks structure per se. Um, I lean more towards free form writing. So whenever I feel a certain type of way, I would just try to put it into words and it would usually be all over the place until I try to put some sort of meaning into it and understand it. So after I free write, I would just put it into a type of literary form.
I like that. I like that you said that you started off with just kind of putting thoughts on a page and it doesn't really matter how it comes out. And I like that it's, from what I'm hearing, everyone's process is very different. And yeah, it definitely shows up in the work from what we've heard tonight. And I think, yeah, honoring each process is what helps us to improve as writers, and also just kind of like taking from each other. Like sometimes I do sometimes I free write as well before I just put something. Either I'm gonna decide, am I gonna put this into a poem, or is this supposed to be an essay? Is this supposed to be a prose? So yeah, definitely honoring the process. Meredith, what does your writing process look like?
Usually, I write based off of inspiration. So I'll have a vague idea and I'll just elaborate on it on a page. And as I read through my ideas, I sort of like just construct it in a more legible way. And I just continue to build upon it.
Yeah, it's amazing how everyone's process looks completely different. My final question that I have for the winners. What is your favorite poem that you have ever written? And then a bonus question, what is a favorite poem by a Caribbean or Bahamian poet that you have ever read? We'll start with Stephanie.
So recently, with everything going on in 2020, it was really a tough year for everyone. And I just sat down and I just wrote whatever came to my head. And I took the time to really structure that into a poem that I thought was really captivating.
What's the title of the poem? Also, do we have time to hear it maybe?
I don't think I'll have time to read it, but
That's totally okay. But the poem kind of followed in the theme of just like the universal like grief that everyone was experiencing from the happenings of 2020, basically.
yeah.
And is there a favorite poem, or maybe even just a favorite poet of Caribbean descent, or who is a Bahamian that you enjoy reading? It's also okay if you don't have one prepared right now. I'm not sure if Stephanie is still with us, so I guess I will pass on this question to Pelazio.
So in terms of my favorite poem that I've written, I don't necessarily have any because when at first when I write one, I would be obsessed with it per se, but then after a while I would see a lot of flaws in it, and then I would try to improve with another one in the future. So that one would just, I would fall out with that poem. And you asked if you could hear one.
Yeah, if you have one prepared, I would love to hear another poem by you.
All right, not necessarily like a poem, but like a free written piece.
Okay.
It's called Suppressed. An insatiable urge to rip out the ache from my throat, tear neglected teeth from my mouth, reach down and scratch the itch flirting with the back of my tongue. It's sickening and tiring, and I yawn repeatedly. So much so, I'm left choking and gasping, with tears at the corner of my eyes. It feels as though they threaten to pour uncontrollably. They're selfish, draining bastards. It would be easier to just remove my head. Funnier how I would still suffer without it. I would feel it from the pit of my stomach. Hear it played on the strings of my heart. They would be the next to go then. My back hurts, as if someone has a firm two-handed grip on my spine, stem to root. They're threatening to snap me in half, have me bent over in a paralyzed slump, a wilted flower who can no longer face the sun, hear the rain, or feel the soil it's about to be swallowed by. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That was really, really lovely. And is
Thank you.
there a favorite or a Bahamian poet or Caribbean poet that you are that you appreciate?
I I don't have a favorite one. I don't really have a favorite of anything, but I do enjoy the works of Ian Strachan. So
Mm, nice. I do as well. And Meredith, to round off my questions, do you have a favorite poem that you've ever written, or a favorite creative piece that you've ever written, and a favorite Bahamian or Caribbean poet that you have?
In terms of a favorite poem, I'd have to say my most liked poem that I've written would be the one that I just presented, Freedom, because of the meaning behind it. Um, in terms of a favorite Bahamian author, I don't really have favorites like that.
Okay, that's totally fair. Thank you for answering all of my questions. Congratulations to all of the winners. Congratulations to all of those who submitted. Yeah, my only thing that I'm keep pushing is to keep writing. And I'll hand it over to Sonia.
Great, thank you. Excellent questions. I feel a little overlap with mine, although I probably asked it in a bit of a different way. So I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna do me. Okay. These questions are for Summer, Ide, and Saria. I'm gonna let you come at it how you would like. I mean, I guess this is probably better if I just ask you one at a time, considering the format of online talking over each other. So I have a couple of questions here. I may or may not ask all of them. And I also want to encourage folks listening in, if you have a question for anybody, please type it into the chat box, because once we wrap up our questions, we should have a little bit of time to take questions from the audience. So if you have a burning question for any of the work that you've heard so far from the winners, please go ahead and ask it while we have this discussion. Okay, so my first question is, what has poetry become for you during the pandemic? So if you think back on the past year, and I feel like it's like a little bit hard to just say the pandemic, because really we entered 2020 already reeling from Hurricane Dorian in 2019, which was really quite traumatic. And I think the function of poetry for some of us changed then and perhaps readjusted again through the pandemic, but we were living already with something traumatic. So it's a bit open. So let me know how poetry, like what it's become for you. And it could be, in terms of what you're reading, or in terms of your own writing practice, or in terms of your research, or however you would like to come at the answer. So let's start with Summer. Summer, are you still with us? Do you want me to come back to you? It's okay. They're like, we're spraying these questions on you. All right, we're gonna take it up. Let's try Ide. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so
and by the way, if anyone ever wants to pass on the question, it's cool. No pressure.
Yeah. I think that for me, like through the pandemic, like I didn't do as much writing as I wanted to, honestly. It was just like the dreariness of the whole experience itself kind of created this kind of like block, But in the way my poems kind of come to me, they come to me like in the middle of the day, and like just doing something. And it became like just a short way of excising some of that energy, some of that fear, some of that uncertainty, in a way like it became a way I could begin to work through, the fears or the issues of isolation in a certain kind of way, talking about, okay, what does it mean to be cut off from family and friends? What does it mean to be just kind of in this space where before I could move how I wanted to in certain ways, and I think that's what really became to me about that recreating my own internal space in a certain kind of way to poetry.
Yeah, thanks. It's a bit of a follow-up for you, but do you find it's easier to write like in response to a shock or a trauma right away? Like, is it a good processing tool, or do you find that you need a lot of distance? Like, I wrote the poems that I shared kind of in the time, but I had a hard time processing what was going on in the stillness of lockdowns. And then like now I feel like ready to revisit it some more because I'm a bit further away, but that's not everyone's. I feel the same way about Hurricane Dorian too. But yeah, what is it like for you?
Yeah, for me, it's a mixture of both, I think, because sometimes it's like, depending on the experience, the words just come immediately, like they'd be expressed in that moment. And other times it takes weeks or months of me just sitting and then waiting, and then it just kind of comes up, the right words, or pieces may come together at one point, and then a little while later I may rework what I already had, and that may be the final kind of form of the expression, the feelings, or the emotions that were created by an incident. And I feel so it can be very different depending on what the event is. If it's an immediate creative moment, or it's something that takes more time for Genesis, to create.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. I wanted to circle back and see if Summer was with us and if she felt like answering the question about what has poetry become for you during the pandemic?
Hello, yeah, sorry, I had some
Hey,
technical difficulties. I'm back.
I had a feeling. No worries.
Okay, what has poetry become to me during the pandemic? Funnily enough, I didn't write a lot I didn't write a lot of poetry, let me say that, before the pandemic. I actually got back into writing poetry through Dr. Hellberg's creative writing class last semester. So I have to thank him for that, because that kind of is where this poem that I won third place with came out of. So yeah, I kind of started writing more poetry during the pandemic. I've never been much of a poetry writer, but I'm learning to love it, learning to appreciate it more. I'm definitely more into narrative writing, but it's definitely been kind of a crutch for me during the pandemic. It's a good way to get emotions out, feelings out, just get them on the paper, not having to put much thought into making it a cohesive story per se, but just, writing words and evoking feeling, I guess. So yeah, that's how poetry has helped me during the pandemic.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I really identified with the, you got a little self-start back in a workshop environment. We all need a little accountability now and then to keep our writing practice fresh. You are not the only one. I see Kavante laughing over there because she knows we meet often to discuss our work, and sometimes that's the only time we write work. So yeah, you're not alone. And it does help to have a group to be accountable to. Yeah, thank you for sharing. All right, is Saria still a big poet? Thanks, Yasmin. I see you in the comments. And all right, Saria, are you here? And would you like to answer the question of what has poetry become for you during the pandemic?
Yes, poetry well, I wouldn't necessarily say it became anything. I would say that it remained the same for me, because poetry and writing has always been something that helped me deal with my emotions and traumatic experience that happened in my life. So I would say that I'm always writing, and over the pandemic, I would say that poetry became more of a release for me, to release all the frustration and just everything that happened during the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you. I was just looking at this comment too from Craig about the honorable mentions. sharing their poems. I think that's great. I'm going to ask 2 more questions. Thank you. Right backwards, because I think what you said, that it wasn't so much that poetry like changed in its function for you, but it continued to perform the thing that you needed, or it continued to be the thing that you needed during the time that you needed it the most, right? And that is, yeah, that's a real thing. I think every poet here can identify with the way that poetry has saved each and every one of our lives. And I think, you know, poets, I don't know, for me, I write for myself first, and I don't think of an audience because there's too much expectation. And then I have a little bit of a filter, and then I won't write about like difficult things I don't want like my mom to read or something. So that's life. But I'm wondering, this isn't so much a question about audience, but maybe just in the act of writing the poem, but then when the poem is done, I'm wondering if each of you can speak a little bit to who do you hold space for in your work? So Saria, if you feel like starting off, that would be great. Who do you hold space for in your work?
I would say I mostly hold space for my family members, particularly my mother, father, and brother, because they're the people that mostly gave me all of those I would say quote unquote negative experience for me that just made me want to write and release and just share it. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. That's awesome. Ide, what about you?
Yeah, well, I think in my work, I try to hold space for, like marginalized groups. That can be queer, that can be, ethnic or nationalities, or even like sometimes even culture. I think about the earth, the Bahamas, bringing my identity with those, what that means, the difficulties of that, you know, and I think about the ways in which, people can be erased or spaces can be erased. I try in my work to give life to all those things, to give a voice to those things, and just to hold space for experiences beyond myself, beyond, because it's only when I can really connect with that outside kind of stuff outside of myself. I think that's when the work really begins to do the job of being a mirror, for people. And I think that's what I try to do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I hear it in your work for sure. Yeah, because I think too, I guess what I didn't say as part of the question, but I feel like hopefully was understood, was that it's like holding space in your poem is also about making space in your work. Because I think we always write to fill the gaps that we see around us or in our canon or in our environment. Summer, who do you hold space for in your work? Or who do you make space for with your work, through your work?
I can't say I thought about it much because, like I said, I haven't written a lot of poetry like recently. The poem that I submitted was my first poem that I written in like maybe a year or two. But I was thinking about it just now, and a lot of my poems have to do with young girls and their experiences, like being in a toxic relationship or feeling ugly, feeling unwanted, feeling unattractive, um, going through life, as a child, and then growing up and realizing life is really hard. So I think I just hold space for young girls like that who are growing up and like me, who are experiencing life and learning and growing and finding themselves. And yeah, I guess that's about it.
Powerful. Thank you. Great. I'm going to ask a third quick question, and it's a fun question, before we turn over to, I want to know what you're reading right now. I want to know what is on your book stand. Could be a wish list on your book stand. I would know. Mine is like, you know, like sometimes I like hit my bedside table a little too hard and I'm afraid like this tower of books is going to come crashing down. But tell me what you're reading right now, or the last thing that you read that you would, you know, that really resonated with you. I'm gonna start with.
I think my connection cut out, but you asked like what we're reading right now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And if you're not reading, like, or if you're between books, or you don't really want to share what you're reading, no judgment. It's cool. You know, we all need breaks. You can tell us like the last thing you read that really resonated with you.
Yeah, I think. Well, I gotta say, it's not poetry; it's fiction. It's a YA novel called Red, White, and Royal Blue. Yeah, it's actually a queer romance novel, actually, and it's really interesting because it's the way in which the novel portrays the love between the male characters is actually very touching, and it uses historical documents from, if you've watched Hamilton, between the character Hamilton and one of his contemporaries, and it's very one about old letters from the 1800s. You see they're very lovey-dovey, they're very like emotional, and they use letters in the novel, the characters, and that's one thing I really like about work, where you can incorporate different things to create, you know, very beautiful pieces of art, you know, very beautiful pieces of literature, you know, and that's what I read last. I really enjoyed.
Cool, thanks. That sounds really interesting. I'm writing it down. All right, Summer, well, what are you reading right now, or what book would you like to tell us about that you read recently?
Honestly, I can't say that I'm reading anything super profound. I'm reading Watchers by Dean Koontz because my mother is a big Dean Koontz fan. So I usually just end up reading the books she reads and they get passed down to me. So whatever she's reading, I'm essentially reading as well. So that's what I'm reading right now. Nothing too crazy.
What is it about?
Oh, Dean Koontz writes a lot about dogs. So it's about a dog and a golden retriever, and the dog has like abilities. I'm just at the beginning stages of it, so I can't say what's going to happen or what it's about, but it's the common trend of, you know, Dean Koontz always writes about golden retrievers. So yeah, something along those lines.
That sounds amazing. Sounds like the perfect book to be reading right now. Cool, thank you. Saria, what are you reading right now?
I wouldn't say I'm reading books. I'm more so reading texts from my English class. The latest one that I've read is by Ian Scratchen, Honorable Member. And I think it's because I've read so much of his work where I got that boldness for independence for sale. Because when I read his work, I was like, oh, he's really bold there. And so I was like, he ain't afraid to, you know, speak about things that Bohemians would necessarily condone or just, you know, push underneath the rug.
Fantastic. I can see echoes of that in your poem, actually. I see it now. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I remember what it was like to be in any school program. You're like, what is even free time? What is even doing all of the reading for my classes? Sometimes that would even be hard to do. So I feel you. I sympathize. All right. Thank you guys for sharing. I didn't want to take up too much of agreements in the chat. Too much more time so that we can have a little bit of time to listen to the honorable mentions. Is that still okay to do if they're here?
Yeah, if they're here, we can go until about 7:45 or so. So if they're here and they want to, yes, please.
Okay, so I have, is Beaumont here? Beaumont, you still with us? I see your name. You there?
I am.
Man, congratulations.
Thank you, man.
It's good to see you. Well, see you. Yeah. Hi, great.
Hi.
Man, it's been a while.
It's been a COVID year.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's been a COVID.
So are you gonna share Joneser's Lament with us?
Sure, let me get in character. Give me one second.
Yes.
Have some fun with this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's me. I haven't had my powder ready, just in case. I needed to actually get in character for this. So sure, why not? Let's have some fun with that. Craig should know by now, if you invite me to do something, I got the most fun doing it. All right. Jones's Lament. Well, babe, what are you looking at? Eh? You see something you like it? I ain't like no man, you know. You best be getting out of here. What? You think you better than me, eh? Cause what? You wears one monkey suit and drives some fancy car? My babe, I is a free man. I don't bow down to no Negro or Negress. Y'all thinks with all your education that you would know better than to sell your soul for a few shekels. Just because you see me on the street looking a little dirty, you just turn your nose up to me. Huh. I then see the people who born with no money find their way to the top, lying and stealing and killing non-stop. And I then see the mother hold her child bloody in these streets. No one hears she cry or come running to comfort she. So what you know? Tell me. You think your money gonna save you when bullet ain't got no eye? Or when cutlass swing, you invincible? And like the Lord, go resurrect if you die? You's a fool like the rest of them. Listen me. I don't need your handout. What I want is you to learn some respect and not just speak your falseness out of your mouth. See with your eyes the truth of the world, where no color is better than the rest. Only the freedom you is carry in your heart, in the beating of the Lord light in your chest. Why you grin? I say something funny, eh? Oh, if you will stop this violence you see, then you better find love to calm these turbulent sea. You know what? I done with you. Get out of my sight. You didn't hear my Jones's Lament. Now move on, because you just can't help yourself, let alone my plight.
A performance as always. Bravo. Bravo. I like how you always ready though. Like you had the powder and you had lighting. Did I just see a light switch off? Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Boy, I almost want to say encore, but we need to fit people in. Okay. Cool. Is Jalicia Strawn here? Another honorable mention E? She's still with us? I don't see the name. Wait. No, I don't think
I don't see her,
so.
Sonia.
No, unfortunately. Okay, well, we'll just have to, you know, come back and hear that another time. Sanika Richard. Don't see the name.
Yeah, I don't see her either.
Alas. All right. Perhaps there are some high school competition honorable mentions still here. Kevante, do you see any names that are still with us?
I think that I see Leela
Lila?
Palmer.
Yeah.
Leela Palmer for Penn Black Girls. I don't know if they would mind reading for us or
No,
performing?
I don't mind.
And Alexis is here too.
Okay. Oh, let me just get it up. Sorry. I wasn't expecting to read.
It's okay.
Okay. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? A beautiful young girl, or a darky, a Negro, a nappy-headed African? Look at your hair, every loop and every swirl. Skin shimmering, dark, a luscious tan. But who should care? They will bring you down in every way they can. Hips that make the boys stare, even if it bothers you, catcall sundry. When you walk out the door, what do you hear? Go back to your country. She doesn't even know her father. Ghetto, ratchet, tramp, angry. But I am a plain Black girl, and I'm beautiful from every hip to every curl.
Thank you, Leela. Thank you. That was so lovely.
Thank you.
I don't see Daly McCartney, so I'm gonna call on Alexis Cadet. I don't know if they would mind sharing with us. It's also okay if you don't want to. Okay, so I see Alexis on the call, but I'm not sure if they want to share. So is this a part where I open up the floor to other questions, or do I hand this over to, oh, okay. So questions for any of the winners from both the high school and UB competition, and I guess questions for Sonia or me, by anyone really.
Our
I have a
questions were
question.
just stunning. Oh, okay.
Not to make this drag on too long, I don't want to go over time.
We have
but-
a whole minute left. So much can happen.
Oh, okay. Let me speak real fast. Because as you all know, I mean, as writers and having kind of gone through that process now for many years, what are your, if any, best techniques that you can think of that get you past being stuck? And I don't like using the term writer's block because I don't think a writer's ever really blocked. I think a writer just kind of impedes themselves by, thinking about something too much or not finding the right image or the exact right word and whatnot. But I mean, is there anything you can suggest to these younger writers who are coming up through this process, that this wheel of pain that we've all been on for a while now, that you can suggest to them that might help them overcome where they're feeling stuck, or maybe like the emotions are too great and you can't find the right word in the midst of that?
So I will go first since I am a younger writer and I would consider Sonia a mentor. Yeah, it's kind of difficult, especially being over here. We're still on lockdown, and I'm honoring my writing process because I'm going through a process of grief where I don't necessarily want to share my work with people. So when the emotions get too overwhelming and I can't find the right words to say, I just let myself have a cry. Or I am really lucky to have a park that's like right outside of my house. I go for a walk, I catch some fresh air, and I come back. And if words still aren't coming to me, then I kind of just put it down and return to it the next day. Because yeah, writing is a process. And especially when you like making the decision to write poetry, which yeah, images aren't necessarily easy to like flesh out all the time. Sometimes you think you have an image in your head and it makes sense to you, and then you kind of pitch it to somebody else and they're like, and this kind of happens within our writers in our poetry group, yeah, they're kind of like, it's not very clear in a sense. So like Sonia said, like writing for myself first, is this image clear for me? And if it is, then how can I continue writing it if I am stuck or I can't seem to get it out clearly? Let myself have that cry or go for a walk or make a meal. Like, I'm very big on escapism, unfortunately. That's kind of how I process my emotions. So like, I go for a walk, I make a meal, I have a bath. Yeah, so that's kind of like how I work through.
I agree. Like distracting yourself from the event, distracting yourself from the work of it allows you to allows your brain to kind of reconfigure unconsciously and then put things together as you need them.
Yeah, I find that, yeah, those distractions, particularly like I'm thinking about like how I can, yeah, make the image more clear. So yeah, exactly. It's just about like, yeah, reconfiguring.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. I saw a friend in the chat and I had to say hi. Okay. For me, the way that I get over things, okay, the way I get over like the blank page, right? Because that's like the scary thing. I mean, I usually have an intention when I come to come to the blank page. So I have something that I'm already like, that's been kind of boiling back here. I find it hard to have this sort of like consistent, like every day I'm sitting down to do something because it doesn't really work, but I might spend that time reading other poetry or just reading whatever book I want. I'm reading some publishing manifestos right now. It's very cool. Or whatever, right? I don't try and put the pressure on myself, but research, like just whatever you have as your starting point, just do like some research. If you have just the word like blue in your head or something, just looking into the color blue, you might not write the poem about it, but it's kind of nice to start collecting, like just reading articles or getting lost down a Wikipedia rabbit hole and taking note of what interests you and where your research journey goes. And I find that that's helpful. Like if I get really obsessed with something, I just start collecting like facts about it. And my other piece of advice, which is a bit more preemptive instead of in the moment, is to always write down the thing that you're thinking of, like in traffic, in the shower, whatever. Like we have a phone, have a note section that you just write something. I mean, you might come to it later and it might be like one of those dream journals where you're like, the dog ate the book, like you're like, what does that mean? But you know, other things are like, oh, I'm so glad I remembered that little thing because I couldn't write a poem like at that time, you know, whatever, at my family dinner or something. So it's always nice to have like an arsenal to pull from later of notes to yourself. And then also just like a folder of research. Sometimes I just read an article and I think it's really interesting that, you know, we discovered that you don't get like obliterated by a black hole and you can recompose yourself on the other end. And you're like, and I'm like, that's gonna happen somewhere. I don't know. So then I collect it and maybe it'll come up later, maybe not. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Well, thank you both. I think that's super useful and, you know, young writers need that. And Maylin has one question. I want to field this and then we'll probably wrap up thereafter. And I'll just say a quick thanks to everybody after Maylin's question.
Oh, wow. Somehow I must have pressed that by accident. I don't actually have a question.
What? Yes,
you have to have one now.
I have to have one now. Oh, man. I have to have a question now.
Especially, May, you were one of the judges. So, you know, maybe we have a question for you.
Oh,
how hard
okay.
was this to judge?
I can do that.
There we go.
It was it was really difficult to judge for lots of reasons. I think there were lots of similar themes that the students wrote about, high school and university students. And that made it hard because you are reading, particularly, there were lots of poems about being a young Black woman in the Bahamas, lots about anxiety, depression. Lots of people wrote about social issues. That made it hard. The quality of the work. I was like, oh wow, like our high schoolers are out there writing poetry. As someone who wrote poetry in high school, I don't remember there being like so many of us. And I don't remember being that good in high school as some of the entrants were. And same with university, just the quality of writing we received really made it a tough call. And I was I was really impressed. And I think one of the winners, Miss Saltelli, I think is her name. When I saw her form and hearing her speak earlier, where she says she just sort of doesn't have a real process and just writes things down, and she's more into free form. Like, I didn't learn to write like that until I was in maybe my third year of university, getting ready to do my master's, learning to release myself from the structure and the sort of classic structures that you're taught. And that was really impressive. Overall, I think, if I can speak for the other judges, we were just really impressed with what we were reading. And that made it really, really difficult to choose the winners. I mean, we could have had honorable mentions for days. Really, it was tough.
I don't envy you. That must have been rough. Yeah. Thanks,
All right,
May.
so thank you. Yeah, thank you. I want to just thank our two hosts, Sonia and Kevante. Thank you for taking the time and doing that. Thank you to our judges. I really, like you just said, Malin, I read through all of the submissions and I thought, thank God I'm not judging this, because I don't know. Like you said, I mean, you'd have 20 honorable mentions at least, and they were super good. I am so proud of all the submissions that came in. Thank you to our young writers. Keep writing, keep submitting, keep putting your voice out there, because people listen, and they will listen. And the more you put it out there, the more people will hear. So I want to thank Dr. Smith for helping organize this. I want to thank all of our donors who made this possible. And I want to thank the BFLF, University of the Bahamas, and everybody who joined us tonight. Thank you all so much. And I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Hey, Dustin, before folks go,
yes, sir.
Can you invite them to come out tomorrow for all of the events? Can you remind us of the events that are going on tomorrow? I'm putting you on the spot.
Why, yes, I can.
Awesome.
March 19th, from 10 a.m. to 1, we have Old Story New Voices. This is original folk tales written and presented by UB students. There is a fiction workshop tomorrow for the high school and university students. That's private though. But from 12 to 2, we have Caribbean Theater, setting the stage for the future. From 12 to 2, we have a graphic novel workshop, which for students. From 2 to 4, we have Prophets, Poets, Griots, All, Bahamian literary production from 1991 to 2021. From 4 to 6, we have publishing, local writer, international audience. And then from 7 to 9, we have a keynote speech from Chris Merrill, Delight Radar, on writing in a time of play. So tons of events tomorrow, all over the place with theme, subject. Very exciting to have all of these things going on, especially in a time of COVID and a time of isolation, as we've all been dealing with. And so finding these new communities and these new voices and these new friends in these strange times, I think is a really enlivening thing.
And if folks need the links, the Zoom links, they can go to our Facebook page, Blue Flamingo Literary Festival on Facebook, or they can contact us via Instagram, Blue Flamingo Literary Festival, or they can send us an email at blueflamingoliteraryfestival@gmail.com. Awesome. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.